Welcome everyone to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday. Today our guest is Chris Tao. Chris Tao has been a Texas licensed realtor since 2014. He is keen in handling all aspects of property acquisition process, from finding the property, analysis, site visit, and estimating P&L. Chris is a PMP certified by the Project Management Institute. He has over 8 years of experience in project management with a strong emphasis on time, cost, and scope, which make him perfect for this role. Chris Tao was also a senior IT manager who managed the treasury, expense management, credit and collection, and internal audit applications for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. He had oversight 3 people managers and 40 plus employees across 5 countries with a 20 million annual budget. Chris is currently the lead sponsor and asset manager for Urbana Apartments at San Antonio, Texas. Urbana is a 204-unit property with 3 chillers. Chris primarily focuses on increasing occupancy, tenant retention, and reducing costs. This will maximize NOI in order to provide investors with the highest ROI. He is very hands-on in the operation process and is not a dashboard type operator. Here's the interview. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday, where we will discuss all about your first GP multifamily transaction. Thank you for joining us here in the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Jeff.
Yeah. Tell me about yourself.
So I am a 22-year IT veteran. Started my IT career back in 1998. Graduated from college, started to work for IT company, did a little bit of startups, so on so forth. And then my highest point in IT was managing about 25 team members across 7 countries. I was the IT manager for the finance department, covering expense management, internal audit, what else? Credit and collection. So, and one of the high point is that my team was able to win 2 CIO Excellent Reward for 2013 and 2014.
Okay, nice. Then, before you started in the multifamily, do you have any real estate experience prior?
Yes. So right out of college, unlike all my friends who now buy BMW, Mercedes, I went out and bought a single family home. So the purpose of that was, my family came up poor. My parents always had an apartment complex. So when I get out of college, naturally I was going to get an apartment complex. But then the decision was, well, why do I want to have, it doesn't make sense to have 2 apartment complexes, right? While other people are making money. So I went ahead and bought a house and put whole family into a house while I still work in Houston, Texas. So 1998 is the first time I bought a house. And then when I moved from Houston to Austin in 2005, I went and bought another home and then had basically stepped into single family from a investment side when Dell sent me to China 2 weeks after I closed on that new house I bought. So it forced me to become a landlord from overseas and kind of gave me a little bit of taste of making cash flow from an investment property perspective. Fast forward, came back, got married. What was the new home in 2005 turned into a rental, and then 17 converted to an Airbnb. Made way more money from Airbnb structure than a traditional 12-month lease. And then that's when I really got excited about investing in real estate and start to think, well, how do I make more money from it, right? So because my mind has always been how to plan ahead, I start to look at, well, is it scalable? So that's when I realized single family, you can really scale. So I went into, talked to a lot of people and spent a weekend with Brad Sumrock talking about multifamily. And I said, you know what? That's it. That's how you scale in real estate. So quickly joined the group. 2 years into it, from 2017 to 2019, found my first property, 204 unit in San Antonio, Texas. I was the one that found the deal, put the team together. Obviously, being my first deal, I can't fundraise that much. So brought in from the networking I had through Brad Sumrock's group, brought in my business partner who helped raise the money. and then we're able to close the deal.
Okay, nice. So you said like you're located in Austin, Texas right now.
I am located in Austin, Texas. Yes.
Okay, okay. Then I think yeah, you mentioned about the multifamily history of you. Then any limiting belief that you have, and how were you able to overcome it and get to your first deal?
So when you're going in the first time, right, you kind of follow what everybody's doing, or the teacher's point of view, right? So I guess my limited belief at the time was I have to start small, because overall what the guideline was, you got to do 60 units or above so that you can hire a property management company. So I spent a good amount of time trying to find something that I can take on myself, right?
Mhm.
But then through the broker relationship, been in San Antonio so often, brokers like, hey, you want to look at this 204 units. I'm like, well, it's out of my price range. But when the broker tell you to look at something, I took a look at it. I figured that would be a good practice anyways. But the number would make sense. So immediately I was like, well, there's money to be made from this deal. So why don't I just try to put the team together? And sure enough, went through the whole chain, talked to a lot of business partners. They look at it. They also say, yep, this is a money making deal. Let's do it. So that kind of had that limited belief to say start small and then really overcome it, because multiple people confirm that you have something solid, and then jump from 0 to 204 doors
Oh, nice.
just from overcoming that limited belief.
Okay, yeah, that's a good start. 204. Then yeah, let's discuss about this first deal of yours. So the source of the deal was a broker.
Correct.
Then this is in San Antonio, Texas.
Correct.
Then 204.
That is correct.
Yeah, 204. Then yeah, what's the class of this property? Is it a class B or C?
This one's a Class C. The reason why we bought it, and most of the people that I talked to, it's not your regular Class C. It's a 1958, 1962 bill, very old, and it's also on chiller. So if you kind of starting new, most people say, hey, don't stay away from chiller,
Mhm.
stay away from older property, and so on and so forth. But it makes money. So got into this one because the broker says, hey, you should take a look at it. So end up with $12.5 million purchase, $4 million capital raise.
Okay. Then yeah, what's the story of this property? Like I don't know if you got the time to know what's the reason of the seller in selling this property.
So the seller is an Austin guy. So by the time I joined Black Zoomrocks Group back in 2017, value add is a common phrase in multifamily. So the seller really just did the value add, and he's within his plan to exit. So that's what he was selling.
Okay, okay. Then yeah, were you able to get a good T12 and rent roll on this property?
A deep what?
T12 and rent roll.
Yes. So the broker was able to provide that.
And
It was part of the original listing. Yeah.
okay, then were you able to see? I mean, at that point, were you able to see a kind of any red flag on this on the T12 and rent roll?
Some of the red flags were the fact that the seller was it was virtually integrated. He has his own management company. So my fear was, well, what happened if he was hiding mistakes, right? And some of the other red flag is, plumbing expenses. He mentioned that there is foundation issues, and when we walked the property, it was pretty evident. So plumbing and chiller expenses too. So we were curious about what's going on with the chiller.
Mhm. Okay. Then so you mentioned yeah, okay, if you can repeat again, like what was the original asking price on this property?
The original asking price, yeah, I think the original whisper was 13 million.
13. Okay.
Yeah, then everybody came under 13. Originally, we were, yeah, originally we just over 12. So the cutoff was $12 million. They whispered 13. The cutoff for best and final was 12 million.
Okay. Then how much were you able to get it again?
We got it for 12 and a half.
12 and a half. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you purchase it, like what was the economic occupancy of the property at that time?
Economic vacancy, I think, was around 12 to 15%. It was reasonable.
Okay. So at
Not
least
physical vacancy, but economic vacancy.
okay, the vacancy, okay, it's around 12%.
hmm
Then yeah, go into your financing. How did you finance this deal?
This was an agency debt because occupancy was well above 90%. Uh, so 2019, the interest rate was still high, and the rumor mill was that it will continue to rise. So now it's an unfortunate event, but at the time we were happy to have a locked fixed rate of 4.8%. Now with COVID-19, it's a lot cheaper.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, yeah. Then for the loan amount, so how much LTV were you able to get the loan for?
I think we were at 78%, if I remember correctly.
So okay, 78% LTV.
hmm
Then what's your entering CapEx budget on this? Like what's your repair cost estimate?
Our rehab budget was $800,000.
800. Okay.
hmm
Then that includes the maybe the fixing that foundation and the chiller issue.
Right. So it included fixing the roof. So there's three main sections. One of them, the roof is bad. So we wrote it in to
Okay.
replace one third, if you want to think of that way, of the roof. Foundation, plumbing. We were putting in a dog park, playground, better landscaping. Uh, we were suspecting that there was a water leak in the pool, so we budgeted for swimming pool repair, which we didn't need, and we were going to put in better swimming pool furniture,
Hmm.
but COVID-19 kind of put a stop to that.
Okay. Okay. Then the loan amount will be around that 22% of this, the 12 and a half.
Yeah,
And
I think
what was
our loan was 9 million, if I remember correctly.
okay, nine. Then for the investor split, what was the investor split look like for this?
That one was 86, no, yeah, 84-16.
Okay. Is there
Mm-hmm.
a pref or no?
Is there prep? No. So under Bradshaw Group, we don't do prep. It was just we don't take acquisition fee. We don't take disposition fee. Typically, it's no upfront fees at all.
Okay.
Just a straight split, and then we have a asset management of 3% of monthly rent collection, if I remember correctly. Total rent, total in total monthly income, 3% is the asset management fee.
Mhm. Okay. Then you mentioned already about the business plans. We will replace all of those. Then is there any other business plan that you haven't mentioned?
No. So the reason why we really like this deal is because it's right behind the North Star Mall. So for San Antonio, uh, that's kind of the most iconic mall in San Antonio because it's got the world's biggest cowboy boots right in front of the mall, and
Oh, okay.
we're right off the Highway 410, right? And then we're I think 1.75 miles from the international airport because the North Star Mall, which is uh, anchored by Macy's, Dillard's, JCPenney, and Saks Fifth Avenue. Within the surrounding area, we have a lot of high-end retail. So unlike traditional airport, nearby airport, it's actually lower desirable. This particular one is in a really high-end retail location. So we looked into this property, and then on the business plan, we're not even doing the value add because the seller already did the value add. So
Mhm.
we were estimating about 1.5% annual rent increase, which is barely keeping up with inflation.
Mhm.
So it's basically just fix deferred maintenance and reduce expenses, and we'll just keep it humming for the next 5 years.
Okay, nice, nice. Then what's your IRR and average cash on cash in on this?
Ooh. Cash on cash, on average, we were doing, I think, 8.5%, and it was a 1.86 multiple.
Okay,
Yeah, so it
then
was we presented a very conservative way. Remember, we're only raising rent by 1.5%, right? Most people
yeah,
are doing 2% or even more.
yeah, yeah.
So our idea was we're going to sell it to our investor at the lowest possible. And then if maybe in the tail end we increase the rent even at 0.5%, at 2% or whatever, it's going to add so much more pop at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. Yeah, that makes sense. At least do it on the conservative end. Then if you get more, then that's the better.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
under promise, over deliver.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
everyone's saying. Then so this one is a syndication deal, right?
Correct.
Yep. Then yeah, if you can go go into the next section of the show, we're talking about the due diligence that was done. So if you can walk us through what different due diligence that was done on this property.
Yeah, so it's my first deal, so I really overly cautious, right? I brought in three crews to almost look at everything. So I had three different crews to look at plumbing, three different crews to look at foundation, and three different crews to look at roof, right? So only chiller, we were able to only get one at the due diligence. So, I figure, hey, if you're gonna come in on the property to give me accurate bid, why not just everybody show up on the same time? So it was a lot of coordination for the property management company. Not advisable to do that if you're ever in my shoes again. But generally, for due diligence, you just tell your property management company, here are the things I want you to check, and they will bring in their vendor and to have competitive bid and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that. Then the three vendors. So was it like a different schedule that you brought them in? I guess,
No,
or it's
uh,
all at the same
so
time.
the way we kind of ran it, because it's 204 units, you only have about a week to do everything. So we allotted 2 days to walk all 204 units, right? And then property management company kind of coordinate which vendor should be at the same time. So you kind of don't want to piss off the vendors where
Yeah.
everybody's scoping the plumbing line at the same time, right? Or you have what, 7 people or even three different companies all on your roof at the same time, right? So we kind of staggered where, the first 2 hours, the first crew get to be on the roof, and then the next 2 hours, the second roof team can be on there, and then depending on the plumber, we slotted them either on the first day or the second day. We'll have them come by later after we walk all the interior units.
Mm-hmm.
So they were given the deadlines that you have to submit your quotes within a week.
Okay, okay, that's nice.
Mhm.
Then at least then once you have the code, then you pick and choose which one is will you will go.
Right, 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 right.
Okay.
Because the reason I did that and not on 2 or 4, because when you do multiple bids, you always want to have odd numbers so that one of them kind of breaks the tie. You know what I
Oh,
mean? So if both of them comes in like 6,000, 5,000, well, how do you know which
which
one
one?
is it's a good deal? So if somebody comes back to be a three 3,000, then you can kind of say, okay, three is probably too far out of range, and ask like what's going on. And if even three, in some cases I've seen, three was the real quote, and then you go out and ask a fourth vendor to come by to say, hey, you know, can you double check the 3,000 or double check the scope of work and see if somebody else comes in, which of the two groups that comes in at.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Yep, yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea. Yep. Then yeah, let's go to the next section, which is the capital raise. How much capital was needed to be raised for
Four
this?
million.
4 million. Okay. Then do you recall like how many investors participated and what's the average?
66 investors.
66. Then what's the average in investment?
Our minimum investment was 30,000. Um, Yeah, and all the investors put in their own money. So we've seen anywhere from 30,000 all the way up to I think 175 was the highest.
175,000. Okay.
Hmm.
So yeah. Then how long did it take for the whole capital raise?
Well, my capital partners is amazing, so we got everything done. I think less than 10 days.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we
Then
actually oversubscribed and we had to turn people away. But yeah, we got it under 10 days.
okay, that's good. Then for the closing, around how much was the closing cost of this deal?
Oh,
Like,
that's a
or
good question.
maybe percentage, do you know? Yeah,
I think it was about 2.3% closing costs.
closing cost. Okay.
Yeah.
Then how long did it take from LOI to closing?
Oh, that was quick. So the funny story is this, and I tell a lot of, I've been in a few shows, and what I tell other people is that don't wait till and don't wait until you have a deal to build your network. You really want to have a Rolodex of people to say, okay, I can call Jeff if he needs to, he can help me with capital raise, or I can call John to help me underwrite the deal, or I can call Paula for net worth liquidity. Because what happened is I was so focused on finding smaller deal in San Antonio, I was in San Antonio within 10 consecutive days. I was there like 7 days. Okay. And it was on the seventh day, the broker told me, hey, you're you're looking at these kind of property, class C's and so forth. Why don't you take a look at the 204 unit? So from the broker told me that deal. I think when I found out about that deal, underwrote it within I think 5 days. I had to submit LOI, and then from the 5 days, I had another 4 days to submit my best and final. So total 7 to 9 days, and I was awarded the deal.
Okay.
So
Only so yeah, that's the but let's say so that's LOI I guess to the PSA. Then from PSA to closing, how long?
oh no. So that's the LOI to get awarded.
Okay, then
PSA
2 days.
took. So my deal was completely crazy. Uh, it turned out there was a lot more deferred maintenance than we thought.
Oh, okay.
So we end up having to fall out of the contract. So we were supposed to, let's see, from getting LOI accepted, writing the PSA, I think it took 3 weeks, about 3 weeks, because the seller was a little bit difficult. So we were going back and forth on all kinds of verbiage, you
Oh,
know. So it took 3 weeks, and then we had about 30,000 hard money down, and then we found out, you know, bigger deferred maintenance. So we retraded, and he didn't like the amount, so we actually filed out the contract no November timeframe of 2018,
okay.
and then right before Christmas, the seller reached out to us and said, "Can we keep it alive?" And we knew that this is something viable, so we end up did get a reduction on the price, and then whole thing dragged out until March before we closed. So
Mm-hmm.
wow, 4 or 5 months.
Okay. But that's
Yeah, it's
interesting, right?
definitely not your normal kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah. And also the thing is like the interesting part is like you fell out of contract, then you still get awarded eventually because the most likely the seller is trying to find if there's still someone that can give more, but maybe they didn't get anything.
Well, it's going through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't interested, everybody they had to go back to a new PSA with second or third position person,
Yeah.
right? Which, as you remember, it took us 3 weeks just to write, just agree on the PSA,
Yeah.
right? So the next person is potentially looking at that again, and then it's 60 days to close after a signed PSA. So it's quicker for him to re-engage us. We already got through the PSA part, It's just a matter of closing.
Yep, yep, makes sense. Then, yeah, I guess that's one advice probably to our listeners is whenever there is some property that you have even a PSA or even an LOI. So if you have a LOI or a PSA for a property, so what you can do is check, let's say even if you were not awarded, check the property until it really gets to closing, because until that it hasn't been bought by another person, it's still open. So you need to still maybe follow up every 3 weeks or 1 month or something, just to check with the broker that how's going, because you never know. Because if anything fell off, right, then you can get awarded.
Yeah, and my story is not the only one story that fall out of contract and so forth. I've heard other GPs who were awarded a deal because they follow up and the
Yep.
previous group fell off, and then they were able to pick it up where they left off. Some cases they even save money.
Yeah, it's all about the follow up. Yep. Then, yeah, so we reach at the end of the show, which is I ask every guest about the final five sizzling questions. So the first question is any lessons learned that you want to share from deal analysis, due diligence, capital raise, financing, and closing experience?
So most importantly is figure out what value you bring to the team, right? I see a lot of um, inspired GPs who want to get into deals, but make sure you understand what value you bring to the team. And then from there, getting your hands dirty, you will learn a lot of stuff. So, you know, what's the value to the team? Finding the deal, right? Finding the money, uh, and then operating the property, meaning boots on the ground. If you're doing large, probably $20 million or even $30 million, you might be the guy who does the net worth liquidity, right? Because now you're talking about quite a lot of uh, loan size, quite a lot of debt that you got to take on. So now you'd be able to say, hey, I have one or four ability. Let me be on the team. Okay. And then don't limit yourself to starting small. Okay. If you're thinking about that, I have to get into a 20 unit before I get into a 60 before I do that. Well, I'm a walking case that I went from 0 to 104 doors. You just got to do the work. Now, would I do that? So would I do that again? Yes, I would absolutely do that. How would I do it differently? I would not overanalyze the deal because I'm an IT guy. I look at every decimal point and I
Yeah.
just really figure out, what happened, this moves, that moves, and everything. At the end of the day, it's a guessing game, right? Because who in their right mind underwrites COVID-19,
Yep.
right? No one ever talks about uh, 30% economic vacancy. This is only a new term during COVID, right?
Yep.
So
Stress testing.
nobody ever under everybody expected a recession, but nobody expected the whole world to stop. So
Yeah.
don't get bogged down on guessing everything right. It's the future. Otherwise, you can guess where the Amazon stock is gonna go if you're that good. So that's my basically two tips: is don't try to guess, figure it out. I mean, get accurate, know what you're doing, but don't overanalyze it, and then make sure you have value to the team.
Yep. Yep. And also, I think the one on that note is whenever you're entering into a deal, always have a reserve for the rainy day. Yeah.
Oh, reserve?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yep. Definitely. Like, because you cannot just assume, like, always be optimistic, saying like, once we have this deal, then capex, without doing a reserve, because reserve might happen. Like, I mean, things might happen. Then if you don't have reserve, then you will have some problem.
That is true.
Yep. Yep. Okay. The second question is any recommended books?
Oh, definitely. I mean, so if you haven't read the little purple book, go ahead and read it. Reach that poor dad. I'm trying to get my kids to read that book. The second book I would say is Traction. So this kind of teach me because I'm so used to having information and I am delegating and be basically the guy that be the guy that consumed the information and gave direction to people that I'm working with. Traction really kind of empower me to say, you need to have the right people on your team that you can give the entire task to them,
Yeah, that makes
right?
sense.
That
Yeah.
frees up your time to do things that actually bring value to the to your business. Because it took me a while until I read that book to switch a W-2 mindset where you're the one that it's your ability, your skill set, and your time in the business that produce that income, right? That's a W-2 mentality. A business owner mentality is how can I minimize how much I'm doing and really laser focus on the time that I'm spending on handful of tasks to bring the most money back to pay for my team, right? So for my case, my best value is to syndicate, find deals, right? So I would starting to hire people to do video editing, the pretty graphics, right? Those things that doesn't really bring value or finding properties, then I start to give that away and say, hey, you know what? If you're good at it, keep doing it. You don't have to ask me what color I want and those kind of things. Just make sure it looks pretty. Give me one or two choices, and I'll go with it.
Hmm. Yep, yep. The ultimate is like the delegate because you
Yes,
cannot do everything yourself. Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah. Then the third question is any recommended podcast, YouTube channel that you're listening to and would recommend?
I like to listen to the radio guys, the real estate radio guys. Um, who else? Uh, Yona Weiss. He's the cost segregation king. He does a really good podcast. Julie Ann Peterson from Old Capital. She does a good podcast. And if you want to understand how to underwrite, look up James Inc. from Old Capital. He's a smart finance guy. He talks to you about how lender look at things, how lender look at the numbers and so forth. So if you're just starting off on how learn how to underwrite, look at James Eames. And then Brian Briscoe, he does a really good webinar and podcast. So those are probably the four that I recommend.
Okay, sounds good. Then, so the fourth question is: this is the time to promote yourself. What's your acquisition criteria for multifamily, like location, number of units, class? So this is to let everyone know and reach out to you if they have any
Okay.
deals.
So my contact information is on here. You can reach out to me from either Calendly, LinkedIn, Facebook, and just email me directly. I look at primarily in the Phoenix, Arizona market, Austin, Texas, Tucson, Arizona, San Antonio, Texas. I'm looking into Atlanta, Georgia as well, Las Vegas, and the Carolinas.
Okay. Then, how many units? Like 100 plus now.
Yeah, right now I'm wanting to get from 100 units to about 250 units, anywhere from 15 million to 25 million dollars.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Then, yeah. So the fifth question, I think you already answered based on your background. What's the best way to contact you? The email address. Yeah, that's also a good idea. Great idea. Yep. So I think, yeah, thank you, Chris, for being a guest. So appreciate your time and sharing gold nuggets to our listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye.